Yo, welcome. First ever episode / part of a Let's Mix Live. My name is Mike Langford. I'm a producer, engineer, mixer based out of Toronto, Canada. Also an instructor at Centennial College, part of their music production recording arts program. I've been thinking about doing this for a while. If you dig down into YouTube, you'll see that I created a YouTube channel almost a month ago. I decided last year I was going to start doing these in January. It's February 7th already. It seemed like every time I sat down to do this, something would come up either on the Monday or come up on the Thursday, which I'm planning on doing these. So I was like, you know what, today, regardless of how things are looking with some of the socials and some of the graphics and whatnot, I'm just going to get going on it. As far as what we're going to do here, some of the students, they've had questions about Pro Tools, mixing, workflow, and I thought it'd be good to maybe incorporate some of the answers or some of the workflow things that I do into these episodes. So I thought that might help people. Also, being able to interact live, I thought that would be kind of good as well. So we are here. Got the chat up. It's probably going to be pretty quiet because I don't know who's actually going to see this today. But the song that we're starting with, it was one of the favorites in last term. I should mention too, it's Cambridge Music Technology. If you are an engineer or a mixer or you're looking for things to practice on, they have an amazing database there of multi-track recordings and things that I wish I had access to years ago. Because it's one thing to have access to your own multi-track recordings. It's another thing to have access to like hundreds of songs. I think there's a few hundred up there. There's tons, different genres, different styles. Stuff with vocals, stuff without vocals, instrumental, live stuff, studio-based recordings as well. So there's tons of content up there. Where I'm going with this is if you are interested in recording or mixing and you're looking for things to practice with and kind of learn on, it's an amazing resource. So that's where I'm pulling some of these sessions from. The song that we're going to be working on today, Alan Stone's Naturally, it was one of the favorites. It's got a great vocal. It's a live recording. It sounds fantastic. That being said, there's a few things in there that might make mixing it a bit tricky, or a few production things that we could probably look at. So that's why I wanted to start with that one in particular. As far as my background, though, I've mixed everything from children's music to metal. So it kind of covers all the bases. That being said, too, is some of the songs that I would like to mix live. It really doesn't matter too much genre-wise. Anything is fair game because I think everything has its strengths and has its more challenging elements. We'll put it that way. So without further ado, let's switch over to Pro Tools here. Another thing, too, if anyone's been following, shameless plug, but I also have a gaming channel, so I was kind of modding a few things that I use on that channel to bring it over to this setup here. So all I've done so far, I'm going to turn this down a little bit because I can. All I've done so far is download the tracks and unzip them and then import them into Pro Tools. I've also brought in, there's a track at the top here, this one up here. You can see my cursor. I did a little test earlier, so everything should be good. But this track up here, that is the actual 2 mix that they have the preview on the site. So I bring that in as well. If I was mixing this for a client, I would always ask, do you have a reference track or rough mix or where you left off? Because I think that's just as important to know where they were at as well, what they thought was sounding good. So let's just have a quick little listen to this. Also going to check to make sure that things are broadcasting properly because that's important too. Hopefully it's not too loud on your end.
Oh, beautiful lady.
I'm using my meters in OBS.
Even from a mirror, but that her dukes are not the daisies and her shape and size face to make sure those blemishes hide. Coffee and cigarettes, calorie news around the neck. Don't let up disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. The body's right, the world is sick, world is sick, world is sick. From flower to flower, growing free. Oh, no petals, they look good to me. And you're just the way that you should be. Yet you're beautiful naturally, beautiful naturally, yeah.
All right, so just having a little listen through here. I'm loving the reverb they're using on this. Again, it's a live recording, so there's people all in a room together, interacting. So it's nice to have the sound of that room.
Wasting all the money on that body that she
I'll just control the volume from here.
her ass and thighs. No, they don't need advice.
So that first listen through for me, normally I'd be making notes as well. I'm kind of making some mental notes. Vocals sound really good. Would I still run them through Melodyne? Probably. If we can dust up, just dust over a few parts. Excuse me, I probably would do that. Love the sound of the snare drum, so I'm curious how much of that is EQing and the mix, or how much of that's the actual tracking. Also thinking too, like who kind of gets priority with some of these things. There's a guitar solo here. But up until that point, I feel like I didn't really hear the guitar that much in the mix. Alan Stone is singing and playing guitar, so maybe we could put the guitar up a little bit more. The keys in there is a nice bed as well, filling up a lot of space. There's a cool little flam cross stick thing happening a couple bars before. I feel like we could bring the volume down a little bit in that solo, so when we come back up there, you can see it like pretty clear, the dynamics that happen. Let's check the ending here. I feel like I really didn't hear the bass up until that point, like up until the very end. Because it's pretty round, there's not a lot of attack on it. That's fine. Doesn't bother me at all. I would want to make a couple notes before I get going. I don't mix in headphones, but I picked up these Beyerdynamic 990 Pros last semester because I was doing more mixed stuff and I didn't trust my other headphones. They're closed back headphones, Audio Technica, the M40Xs, I think. And I do love them. I love them for listening to stuff. I love just kind of like basic editing and like they're comfy that way. But I wanted to try some open back ones for mixing because I just feel like there were some things I was not able to pick up on very well when we were mixing. Not that I don't mix in headphones, so it's all new to me, but I thought it was good enough. I'm like, I probably do this. Also, because of phase relationships, if I have my speakers going, because I've done it once, did not do very well. If my speakers are on and I've got a live mic in here and we're trying to do mix stuff, it's a dumpster fire trying to do that. So there's a few things that may sound a little bit wonky, but I might take breaks once in a while to just mute the microphone and check a couple things on my speakers. If you're curious, I am using NS10s, Yamaha NS10Ms. And for those who care, they are horizontal. They're not vertical. My second set of speakers is a KRK Rocket 6s. I don't use them very often, but they're there if I need a reference for it. But basically between the NS10s, and I've got a little USB speaker that I use to kind of check the level of vocals and drums. Well, vocals, kicks, and snares kind of on. It works for me. So where we're sitting right now, again, all I've done is import the tracks so far. And I would listen through what the client was giving me. Also I should say, I'm not necessarily going to finish some of these songs as far as mixing goes. I'm just kind of going to do some prep and kind of see where we're at. Also, half jokingly, just so people can see some of the stuff that goes into prepping a mix, or what someone might do to prep a mix to get it ready. Because you might actually spend 4, 5, 6 hours prepping and editing, even when the client thinks it's done, to get it ready for mix. And then you might just spend 3, 4, 5 hours actually mixing it. That being said too, I've been thinking about how to word this. I'm not here to show you what you should do. I'm here to show you what you could do. If you give this to 10, 20 different mixers, you're probably going to get 15 or 18 mixes back that are all good. You're probably going to get a couple that are exceptional. My math is bad already. And you probably get a couple that didn't really hit the mark. So don't think anything is set in stone as far as how we're working on this. That was a bit of a pun. I just realized that. So where we're at right now, the boring stuff that I would start on this. First thing I would do, I would save this as, just call this mix prep. And I also would call this probably mix prep 1, because sometimes you have different versions of things when you're prepping for mix. We've got our preview or kind of reference mix that we're working with. I'm going to put in a master fader. Also, one of the things I thought about not doing is I'm not going to bring in, for the purpose of these, I'm not going to bring in stuff from templates that I have. I'm going to just build everything up so people can kind of see the workflow that I have here. So I'm going to put in a master fader. So you can either go up to track, go to new, make it stereo, master fader. And we can hit create. The hotkey for doing that in Pro Tools on a Mac, Shift, Command N. That's how we bring up our new tracks. I highly recommend understanding the Shift, Command N. I also highly recommend just getting comfortable with hotkeys if you are working in any DAW. It'll make your workflow way faster, but also when people see you and they don't really know what's going on, you'll look like a wizard, even if you just know half a dozen shortcuts. So I'm going to make a master here, so that way you can write everything through it. Also, I'm going to just inactivate. So I can just right-click and go to make inactive, or I can hold Control and click on it and go to make inactive. I'm just going to make it inactive for the time being so that I don't accidentally have that blasting me while I'm trying to work here. I'm going to just highlight all these. So I'm going to hold Shift, select that. I'm going to hold Option. Excuse me. I'm just going to make those a little bit smaller so it's just easier to kind of handle here. Also, I'm going to do is Shift Option. I'm going to go to our outputs and make sure we're all going out to out 1 and 2, which we should be. Now, one of the things that I like to do, I like to use aux tracks or buses for my drums, bass, guitar, keys, vocals, but I also use my aux tracks as I guess that's correct, as kind of dividers. I don't care to color code everything, but that's just personal preference. If you want to color code things, by all means, do what works for you. I don't care that much. I actually find it distracting when things are all crazy colors. So I keep a lot of it pretty gray, but then I use my subgroups as my kind of dividers. So I know we have, I'm going to slow down here. I know we have drums, bass, guitar, keys, and vocals. So I'm going to hit Shift, Command, N. Now, this is where we can get some more hotkeys. If I hold Command, and then with the directional arrows, if you left and right, you can switch from stereo to mono. So I'm gonna make that stereo. And then if the up and down keys, you can cycle through all your different track settings that you can have here. So I'm gonna go to my aux track. Let's just assume, so we need drums, bass, guitars, keys, vocals. So we need 5 off the bat here. So let's say 5 to create. And we'll just go ahead and create those. Now, another personal preference thing. A lot of people I've noticed I am not of the majority here. A lot of people like to put their drums at the top and then kind of build their way down to where the vocals are. I like to put my drums at the bottom and then bass and then usually guitars and then keys or auxiliary or whatever is there. Or synths, and then my vocals, because at that point I'm at the top, and then I've got my reverbs and my delays and any other kind of subgroup effect stuff I need, and I just like to build up at the top. It hits a point where I don't want to touch my drums, I don't want to look at them, so I don't want to scroll up and then see that stuff at the top. Again, doesn't matter. I've not heard someone say the drums sound better if they're at the top of your session, so doesn't make a difference. I'm gonna go ahead here. I'm going to double click that. I'm going to call this drum master. You can hit OK and we can go to the next one. So we'll call this bass or bass master. Another thing we can do, because we're renaming our tracks, you can hit previous and that'll go up as far as how your track count is here. If you hit next, it'll go down. But also what we can do is we can hold Command on a Mac, and then we can hit up on our directional keys, and that'll go to the next track above it. And if you hit Command and down, that'll go to the track below it. So what do we say? Drums, bass. We said guitar master. I'm not going to put the vowels in the in guitar there. That helps kind of shorten the name of the track. We had our keys master, and then our vocals master, but Vox master is fine. One of the things that I highly recommend, and I tell this to students, I tell this to friends, tell this to family, anybody that is remotely involved in music production, assume you're never going to finish it. So try to name your tracks and name stuff. So something happened, and like your last few breaths are like, you finish this mix, particularly fix the snare, and then like you expire. If they open up the track, they'll know exactly what's happening there. They're not looking at it, and the track doesn't say, you know, warbly thing or like wah vocal or audio 5 or something like that. So just try to make it so that when you're naming things, it makes sense for anyone to look at it. One of the things I love about the sessions from the site, though, they are well labeled tracks. I don't know if that's part of it, but you're seeing right here, you know, drums, room, where is it? Like even here, like organ, like the DI, like all that kind of stuff. It's fantastic. Vocals lead, U47, like all that stuff is great information. You put that information in. If you're on Pro Tools and you want to switch back and forth, this is another little mini rant. If you're in Pro Tools and you want to switch back and forth between your edit window and your mix window, just hit Command and equals, and that'll bring the windows back and forth. My mini rant I wanted to go on is people that use 2 screens for mixing. Again, if it's comfortable for you and it's what you want to do, fantastic. I've seen some setups where they've got a screen in front of them, kind of lower, and a screen that's up higher. That's kind of their edit window, and I think that's a pretty good setup. And when people have 2 screens side by side, I'm just like, you're constantly kind of doing this. You're either mixing or editing. It's one at a time. One big monitor over 2 monitors. That's personal preference, though. Again, not what you should do, what you could do. So they did a good job labeling all these tracks here. So let's start kind of organizing them. So that says vocals, 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 vocals. So I can just hold shift while I'm selecting them and just move those around. I'm else we got here? We got some keys. So we hit that, hold shift, select that, bring this up here. Electric guitars, we can bring that up to guitars, and that's all drums. I'm not seeing where the bass is. Anyways, let's just listen to what's this chamber one here. Let's see what that is. So I'm trying to figure that one out. You can hear the vocal in the background, which is pretty cool. So I guess maybe everybody else is kind of plugged in. That could be a thing. I was trying to find the bass guitar because I know there's a bass guitar in there, or at least it sounded like there was. Let's just assume that's kind of a room sound for the drums. So I'll bring that down. We've got drums, floor tom, we have kick in, kick out, drums overhead, they're stereo. There's a little tambourine on there too, which is kind of cool. I can hear that on the right side. It might be one of those mounted tambourines off the hi-hat. Should be kind of cool. That's snare top, snare bottom. Our overheads, our rack tom, put that up there. Again, whatever makes sense to you. I like just generally kick, snare, rack tom, floor tom. If there's hi-hat, ride cymbal, overheads, I kind of put the drums together and then put the brass or the cymbals together. Does it make a difference? Nope. It's just how it makes sense in your head. Again, these vocals are labeled really well because it already says like vocal lead background or backup vocal 1 or BV vocal 1 and 2 lead vocal. That I might rename because it might make it a little bit easier to get to lead vocal, or just to make some of these track names a bit shorter. One thing I would do off the top as well, I'm going to highlight all these tracks. So I'm just going to hold shift, click from the top down to the bottom. I'm going to hold shift and option and click this little tab right here. This brings up our playlist. I'm going to duplicate them. So this makes a new playlist for everything. Reason we're doing that, if we make any edits, we know what we're actually affecting. If we make any edits, we can always go back in time. What I'm going to do, speaking of going back in time, I'm actually going to undo that. So I'm just going to hit Command Z so you can see that playlist is gone. Because what I want to do is not start at the very, very beginning of the song. I want to pull this out a little bit just in case we need to make any changes. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here where it says groups. Again, I might move kind of quickly at times. So I'm going to go down to where it says groups. That way I can select everything and move everything over. I don't have a BPM for this, but also it being live, I'm not entirely sure how locked up to a click or how locked the tempo actually is. Just give me 1 second here. Just going to listen through. How loud this is going to be. Oh, we still got that solo.
Disrespect, disrespect. Stressing on, wasting hits. Body right, world is sick, world is sick, world is sick. Down, going free. Oh, no, where do good to me? Not just the way that you put.
All right, so there's a couple ways to do this. I do this the old-fashioned way where I actually have a little metronome in front of me. I can just tap tempo on it. It's saying 67, so we can kind of start there, I think. Excuse me. It's like I spend all day not talking, and then I get hyped up to talk on the microphone, and water, and everything, and then it just goes down the drain. So we can, let's put the tempo. So I'll hit return. That'll go back to the beginning of the session. Can click this little button up here for tempo change. Location, bar 1, beat 1. Let's make that 67. that could help us. And what we will do now, or what I'll do now, we still got our all groups on here. So what I'm going to do is look for the beginning. Other couple shortcut things here. If I hold Command Option and then use open bracket, I can increase the size of the waveform. For anyone that's freaking out when they're like, oh, the waveform's not big enough, it's not loud enough, just do that. Just give it a couple taps and it'll be way better. Also, another thing that I see all the time, this A to Z button over here, this turns a lot of your, and I don't know the technical terms for a lot of this stuff. I'm not Pro Tools certified. This A to Z button over here, when you select that, it'll turn orange, and this turns a lot of your buttons on your keyboard into hotkeys. When that's not on, things don't work. So highly recommend having that on there. But if you use R and T, you can zoom in and zoom out. There's definitely times I'm just mashing the keyboard, and you probably don't know what's going on, but I'll try to slow down where I can. So that's kind of our downbeat there. So I'm going to go in behind that. I'm going to go behind that kick drum there. And I'm going to hit B, and that'll break that. And I'll just freak everyone out for a second here. So I'm just going to delete all that. I'm going to put this into grid mode. I'm going to put this on bars and beats. And I'm going to, let's just pull this over, like not that much, but let's start this on just for fun. Actually, just because it's 2022, let's start this on bar 22. So now our downbeat is there. Now what we can do is take our trimmer tool. We'll just pull this stuff back. So now we got a little bit of space at the top here. I like having that space there. Should we need space to put any samples or any loops or anything, we kind of have a little bit of little storage, a little bit of a closet over here to do that. It's important. Well, not say it's important. It's just, I think it's important to have that space there off the top. Should you need to kind of hide something there. Also, if there's like kind of digging a little bit further, should there be a bunch of cuss words in the song and need to do a clean version or something like that, if you've got a sample that you kind of go for all the time, you can just tuck that over there, depending on how you clean up some of your tracks, a little bit of sailor talk in it. So we've got our track starting here now. So bar 22. Now that should be, another thing we can do is, now I'm curious about this tempo here. We can do tab to transient if that's selected up there. So we've got our downbeat with our kick, going to the next kick over here. One thing we can do, we've done this in a minute, identify beat. So the first beat should be, okay, that makes sense. The first beat should be 22. I'm just going to double check this here. Okay, so because the world wants to do this sometimes, I'm going to push this over just a little bit more. I thought that was on bar 22. This is life when you're working with music, except I don't have like TV on off to the side. Give me a second here. Something just looked a little bit wonky there, so let's try to figure that out. All right, well, that generally should say 22 bars. Not entirely sure why it's doing that. That's a new one. Usually when you have it in grid mode, it wants to go right to it. So I'm not entirely sure why it's doing that. But Pro Tools, anyone who's been working with Pro Tools knows that sometimes you just have some wonky things. Oh, again, usually it's the pilot. Okay, so our grid mode over here was set on seconds, which is not the norm. So when it's set on seconds, it's one of those things where hopefully there's somebody that's at home that's like screaming. Be like, your grid mode set on seconds. There we go. Okay, there we go. World makes sense. Usually when the world doesn't make sense, there's just something minor that's going on. So we can just tab to transient again. Go up to event, identify beat. So that's 22. This should be 23 because we're just using one bar. 2, 3, 4. So that's still saying 67 up there. So I think that's probably pretty close. That's probably close enough. And we'll look over here. So yeah, it's pretty close. Pro Tools, yeah. Just checking the counter up here. That's probably close enough for your like using the tempo for your reverbs or delays or anything like that. So we can work with that. Okay, so we got this kind of lined up. So that's where that's going to start. I can use trimmer tool, bring that stuff back again. Now, where I left off is I had all these tracks set up here. I'm going to deselect that. If I just hold Command and select a track, you can deselect it. I'm going to hold Shift and Option and hit Duplicate. And now this will add a 0.01, so another playlist to all these tracks. Reason I'm doing that again, if I'm making any edits and I need to go back, it's easy for me to just flip back on our playlist and to grab another section. Or, you know, if we tune a word and we don't want to tune it, or we want to go back to the original one, because that happens sometimes. Clients like, oh, I liked it how it was before, and you just go and just pull back out. It's fine. So that stuff's good. Also, if something happens with just editing anywhere, you can always revert back to a safer copy. So I like to keep our original here. Going to just quickly go through and rename some of these. So that's vocals lead. So Vox lead 1. I usually use .c as our comp. You could put comp. I just put .c. I know that that's what that is. Also with my naming conventions, if I tune something, I'll add a T to it. If I denoise it, I'll add a Z. If I tune it again, I'll add another T. If we time something, I'll add a T. So that way I can kind of always see with all the different playlists, everything that we've done to it. Because with our drums, we have our tracking, our comp, and then our timed drums. Our vocals might have our tracking, our comped, and our tuned and timed or prepped vocals. So it just helps me do some, just kind of do some housekeeping. So that's our first vocal lead there, Vox. Let's call that BG1. And this was Vox Pro Tools. And that was Vox BG2. Keys Master. We'll just call this Keys DI. We can call this Keys Whirly DI. Guitar Master. We'll call this Guitar. Usually don't really, I usually call guitars unless they're acoustic guitars. So let's call this Guitar Amp. And we'll call this, because there's two of these, so we'll call this Amp.1. I'm just copying and pasting those titles. Our bass, which is missing right now, it's somewhere though. This is our kick in. This is our kick out. This is our snare top. This is our snare bottom. Again, all this stuff you can be doing when you're watching TV or watching the game. Go Leafs, go. This is our rack tom. Also, if you want to put a note in the comments, you can just tab down to that. Or you can put that up here as well. That's the floor tom, so we could call that tom floor. Or we call it T2. I would normally call it T2. All right, so those overheads. We might want to check, because I think those overheads are check what's high and what's low, where the hi-hat is, where the ride cymbal is. So let's just have a quick listen to that to make sure. Now, if it's a left-handed drummer, we're sitting on the kit. If it's a right-handed drummer, we're looking at them. Because I feel like the hi-hat's over here. Yeah, and the ride's over there. So let's assume they're right-handed. Just gonna have to sometimes you just have to make assumptions and just move on when you can't look at something. So low, and that's high. I personally like audience perspective, that being if you were looking at the person playing. I do play drums, so I find it weird when like it feels like you're sitting on the drums and then you're with the band. Like the band's awesome, that's awesome too, but I like to kind of make it so we're watching the band. It makes more sense to me instead of me being in the band, unless it's like a wicked band, and then that's cool. Which is the band's pretty wicked. But let's keep moving on here. This is room mics. I feel like the kick is pulling to the left. The cross stick on the snare, like the side stick on the snare, sounds awesome. I think it's similar where the we'll just copy that. I think it's similar. And then we got our chamber down here. Let's call that room big. I know I just said like name it so that anyone can look at it and know what's going on, but I think that that's still fair game to call something room big, because it's pretty room and it's pretty big. Like it's a big sounding room. Let's call that actually chamber. There's a lot of characters there. But anyways, you can kind of see how cleaner it looks to me with shortening the names for the tracks here. I just think it looks a little bit better. Also, back in our mix window, one of those things that we don't think about all the time, I do believe if you hold Option Command and hit M, you can shrink the size, like the width of your tracks, and you can see like how few characters you kind of have space for when you do that. So I generally leave everything that amount of width. So I'll go back to our mix window here, or sorry, edit window. I got things renamed. This is all looking pretty good right now. As far as things I'd want to do today, also again, this being kind of the first episode of doing this, things I want to do today was rename the tracks, get a handle on what's going on, also listen through some of the tracks, clean some of the tracks up if there's noise, because this is a live recording. Like even looking down at the bottom here where our toms and stuff are, maybe we can manually gate that stuff. We can use a gate, a dynamics processing a gate, but I would rather just manually gate it, because we can do that. So let's do that. That way, if we change something, the gate doesn't need to be readdressed. We can just move on with our lives. So get a handle on the tracks, kind of listen through. I want to listen through one more time, and I want to put some markers in where I think the different sections of the song are. Reason being, when we get further into our mix, it might be really handy for automating certain things if we already know where the chorus is or the verse or the guitar solo. So also, I can try to sort my voice out with some water while we're listening through again. So and I do think there's some live kind of just testing off the top here. Oh, the keys are... The bass is coming from the whirly here. Okay. I think so. Okay. They're just... Yeah. So off the top there. So... Oh, they just have a 1 count too. That's boss. Okay. So I'm going to put some markers in. So... I'm going to hit enter on our number pad over here. Also, what we could do is go to markers and hit that button. I just like calling that start. If you don't have some of these options here, some of these some of these lanes basically. If you hit this little drop down up here, this shows you everything that you can add. I like having minutes and seconds, markers, tempo, and meter. I think that's more than enough information that I need as far as the session goes. Same thing over here with this drop down. I like having for the edit window, I like having my inserts, my inputs and outputs, or my IO, and the track color. I know I said I don't care about track color, but I just leave it on defaults. So our masters are red, our auxes are green, our audio tracks are blue, and I do believe our instrument tracks are orange. Those are the kind of the ones I generally see, but just enough information. So if I want to add, if I want to add an EQ or a compressor or something, I don't need to go back to the mix window to do that. I can just do this right from here. So I'm going to call that start. I'm going to hit B. I'm going to break all that. I'm going to double click that. I'm also going to take this off of all. 1 second here. I'm going to take that off of all. I'm going to select all of our tracks here. I'm going to deselect the drum master, bass master, guitar master, keys master, and vocal master. So we just have all the audio tracks selected here. I'm going to hit Command G. This is going to make a group. I'm going to call this tracking, if I can spell, tracking all. I'm going to rename that because I already don't like what that's called. I'm going to call that all track. No, I don't want to call it that. Let's call that tracking all. That looks good. I was looking at how I was looking at the groups down here, and it looked kind of gross to me. So this makes it so we can make edits to just our tracking, and we can leave this alone up here. Because eventually we're going to need to make this line up. I think that's probably pretty lined up, yeah. So we can tidy this up a little bit off the top here. So you can hit B to break that. You can double click to highlight all that. I'm going to hit Control M. That's going to mute it. So we're not deleting it, but it's just muted. What we can do here now. See, they've got the reference track where it's right up against it. We can just kind of tuck that in before there. There's something I like about that 1 beat count, that little quarter note there. I think that's kind of cool. So I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to. So one of the things I generally like to do before we actually, when we find the beginning of the song, I like to put a marker in and just kind of label it nothing. That way, when I get to the end of the song, I can just have my beginning of the song and end of the song, and it's already marked off. The start, I usually use that when we're counting in, if we're still tracking. So if you got a bar or 2 bars or something. That way, too, especially with the last couple of years, with a lot of people working remotely, working from home, passing files around, it's really good to have 1 or 2 bars so that you can sync things up easily. And I highly recommend have like a 1 or 2 bar count, so 4 or 8 beats to start your song, so that if you need to line anything up, it's going to be a lot easier to do that. So let's just have a listen. We'll drop some markers in. We'll just kind of feel it out. We can always move the markers around later. If you're dropping markers in on the fly, I do recommend having it in grid mode. That way, when you hit enter on your number pad to drop a marker in, it'll lock it. As far as I know, it locks it to the actual grid. If it's on slip mode, which kind of goes all the in-betweens, it'll kind of drop it off where it sees fit, or where you press the button. So let's have a listen through, drop in some markers. So first verse here, if there's still the intro, I'll put that marker in after. Could be pre-chorus or chorus. We'll call this the chorus. turn down a little bit, still a little bit to get a handle on the volumes for everything. We'll call this the tag, because it's kind of the part after the chorus. Or maybe this could be the chorus. We call the other part the pre-chorus. Don's here. How's it going, Don? Don's saying, whoa, we're getting technical tonight. What's up? It's my other channel I wanted to start. We can do some mixing live. Called Let's Mix Live. I'm so original that way. Okay, let's call the first part the pre-chorus. We'll call that we'll call this the tag or the re-intro. Okay, even from where we are right here, let's call that the pre-chorus 1. We'll call this chorus 1. Sometimes you need to hear a couple parts. Even though I've heard this song a whole bunch, it's different listening to it like this. We'll call that the re-intro. Don says, sweet. Well, I'm glad you're here. We'll call this verse 2. Again, this is just faders up. We'll do some balancing. We'll go through and actually listen through stuff in a minute. But I just want to drop some markers in. It's one of those times too where I'd still be watching, Walking Dead or something, or Breaking Bad. Pre-chorus 2. And I need to take a few swings at actually putting markers in because I'm half paying attention, or there's a hockey game on or something. Goalies go. Those keys are awesome because they're going to fill up a lot of space and just make things really wide. And chorus 2. So I think we're getting into the guitar solo. 3, 4. Might be a little bit of call response between the keys and the guitars here. But Alan Stone's band, so if you got to pick a favorite, plays guitar, so make sure that guitar's up there. Back into the okay, third chorus. They did a really good job going because of how the chorus for first and second chorus, they kind of drops down in dynamics. It's kind of cool how they built that one up. So just want to grab this here. We'll just call that outro, so we know we're going there. Okay, so that whirly, that's our bass. Which is pretty good because it's probably going to be pretty in tune. We've got everything set in a group here right now. If you want to get into that group without having to turn off your groups, you can turn them off by hitting Shift Command G. So if you look in the bottom left there, you can see it highlighting and kind of graying out. Also, you can do is hit Control or hold Control, and we can select things. And that allows us to get in there without having to turn our groups off all the time. I generally just turn my groups off for a second if I want you to do something, but especially if you need to move anything around in your mixing, if you just hold Control, you can get in there. All right, so we got our markers in here. This looks pretty good. let's put a marker right here, call that the intro. So this to me is a lot easier to look at. Also, you look at your memory locations over here. Should you not have that up, you can hit Command 5 on your number pad and bring that up. Also, you can go over to Window and bring up memory locations. I think with students, the hotkeys, if you're wondering if something has a hotkey, if you find it in the menu, over on the right-hand side here, when it's got a little square around it, that's on your number pad. So it's quicker to kind of bring some of these windows up if you know that they're there. But there's tons and tons of hotkeys for everything. Also, should the day come, Save As doesn't have a hotkey, but with Macs, you can create hotkeys. If you go into System Preferences and Keyboards, I think, you can add a hotkey here. You just type in whatever it's called in your menu and the hotkey you want to use for it. So I can just hit Shift Command S and I can make a new Save As really quickly without having to go back up here. When I am mixing, I make new versions all the time for things. If I think it's sounding good, I just make a new version and save it. That way, if I think it starts sounding like garbage, I can go back to an earlier mix, because sometimes you step away and you're just like, what was going on? And you just go back to an earlier mix and you're like, yeah, this was way better. Or you're like, no, this is garbage too. So I still need to just keep working at this. So we got our markers in now. We're like, let's safely say we're about 40 minutes in, and all we've done is listen through the song 2 or 3 times and rename our tracks. So when people are like, why does mixing take so long? Because you gotta get it set up. You gotta get all your ingredients all kind of measured out so you know it's making sense. Let's start having a listen through some of these tracks. I'm going to mute all of our tracking that we have. I'm going to turn off those groups. I'm going to make some groups for our actual not subgroups, but just like our groups of instruments we have here. I know we've got our subgroups, our auxes, like our drum master and our bass master. I'm going to go ahead and just move our whirly down there. What I like to do is make groups for these as well. Don't need to do that for that. Let's call this guitar. And our keys are good. And then Vox all. So we got our little subgroups here now. So I can turn my groups back on, turn off tracking all. But now we can get in here if we need to make any edits. I'm doing this so if there's anything we need to fix across all of our tracks, we can do that. Things look pretty good right now. But also I want to do is just kind of have a listen through some of the tracks soloed here. If there's any we're looking for technical stuff right now. If there's any hum, hiss, we have, especially with kick drums, any squeaky kick pedals or something, we can kind of have a quick listen. We don't just listen to the whole thing. It'll jump out if we're listening into the track, but just kind of a quick listen of some of the quality of some of the sources that we're working with. Also, we can look at the Pro Tools. We can look at the actual overall volume of some of these tracks. So sometimes the track's a bit loud and we can just use clip gain to just make it louder or quieter. So let's listen to our kick drum here. That sounds pretty good. Sounds like a kick drum. That's the microphone outside. I don't know if you can hear it that well. It's very woolly sounding. Top of our snare, so the cross stick or side stick. And again, you can hear that tambourine that might be on the hi-hat. That's the snare bottom, so that strainer that's there, you can hear it. That's something where if you might want to lay a sample in. So when we're playing actually not side stick or playing. Doesn't sound like a rim shot either, not to go all technical drum stuff. It doesn't sound like a rim shot. It sounds like they're actually hitting the center of the snare with the stick opposed to hitting the center of the snare and the rim at the same time. I'm hitting rim shots constantly in rock band stuff. So that rack tom This is one I'm curious how much bleed is here. Pro Tools? Oh. So we can manually gate that if we need to. But I'm not hearing any buzz or any hiss or anything, which is the main thing. Floor tom. That's a really high floor tom. One second here. There we go. Okay. For some reason, I feel like the rack tom is the floor tom. And the floor tom... I was just checking... I guess I can do this. I was just checking the actual name of the track. So if we just make a little break there, we can see what's going on there. But I feel like... I really do feel like that is switched around. That's actually a little industry secret here. I feel like this is Tom 2. And I feel like... Sorry, that's floor tom. I feel like this is the rack tom. If I could type on this keyboard, just because we did that. I feel like that's the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, because like most of the time with our drums, our rack tom's the higher one, our floor tom is the lower one. So if I'm wrong, someone can call me out on it or let me know about that. But for here on Earth, usually the rack tom's the higher one, and the floor tom is the lower one. So that's actually how it was labeled. And I did say everything's labeled really good, but sometimes things slip through. It's late on a Friday, and people want to get out of there before it's too early on Saturday, and it is what it is. Our overheads, have a listen to those. Yeah, that tambourine is mounted on the hi-hat, because I can hear stomping on it. Personal preference, I don't like that tambourine on the hi-hat, because I find when the drummer uses their foot to stomp the hi-hat closed, that tambourine shake is like out of time, because there's like a set duration of time between closing it and it actually making the tambourine sound, and it really is dependent on the tempo of the song. Is it going to keep you from buying a house? Probably not, but it's just one of those little things where when it jumps out, it really jumps out. What's left here? Our rooms. There's a little break in here. Let's have a listen to that. There's not a lot of bleed. There's not a lot of hiss or hum or anything. Like that's fantastic. It's the way it should be. Now we can kind of hear it in there. Just the sound of the room. On my end, you kind of hear like a low end rumble. So I don't know how low end rumbly that actually is, like on speakers or someone actually hear that, but we could always throw that like some of our meters might be able to tell us, like our graphical meters might be able to tell us kind of what's going on in there. All right, drums overall, I think they sound pretty good. I'm not going to do anything with those right now. I'm going to there's always quicker ways to do things as well. Sometimes you just click around. Let's just look at our keys here. So this is our bass. I do believe. I have to assume it's in tune because it's keys. And it's not like a piano or something. So also I'm curious. I'm wondering if we can grab this. That's, yeah, this is fine. Nope, that sounds pretty good. You can work with that. Let's have a listen to our guitars here. Just drop in at the top, just so we can hear if there's any. A little modulation on there. A little flanger or phaser, one of the two. Likely one of the two. Just gonna go over here with the louder. I'm gonna say phaser. If you're curious, or you want to put your 2 cents in, if you're on YouTube, in the chat below. I think it's a phaser, not a flanger. Okay, that sounds pretty good. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, there's just 2 different microphones on it. That to me, that's a school chord. I'm sure it works musically. There's a lot of education on that chord right there. All right, guitar sounds pretty good. Let's look at our keys here. I love them. I love the sound of this. I do have a phase meter. I do have like VU meters in front of me, but I also have a phase meter as well. And like those keys, we could probably widen them quite a bit to fill up a lot of space and create a little bit more of a bed of what's going on. So that stuff's, yeah, pads, keys, and stuff like that. Like it can add a lot of just depth and movement really easily in our mixes. So let's go listen to our vocals here. We'll start with our lead vocal. I'm also curious to hear how much kind of bleed is getting into everything. So I do believe, yeah, this is just our lead vocal mic. So those drums are getting into everything because they're drums.
Oh, beautiful lady, Maybelline, baby, hearing from a mirror, but that her dukes are not, but that her dukes.
So, like, technical things. Again, I think the vocal is great, but it'll...
But that her duke, but that her duke, that her duke.
Even there's a little something in there. I don't know if we need to fix this right now, but... we can just quickly... Sometimes you can kind of cheat it real quick if you just grab, like, one cycle of the waveform. Because, again, we can do that. And just copy and then duplicate it. So Command C, Command D, and just sew that up a little bit while we're there. I don't know if you can hear that. We'll just go back to the other playlist here. There's a little click that's there. There's a bunch of different ways to get rid of it, but if I can just throw a little Band-Aid on it, I'll do that. Her shape and size. I'm actually just gonna listen through the vocal and try to not talk over it.
She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide. Blemishes hide.
A little bit of distortion there, it's fine. Oh, no way am I critiquing the recording of this, because I think the recording is fantastic. So if you did record this, great job. But also just like there's always little technical things that are going to happen, especially with the human faces involved. The face, the mouth, teeth, tongues, lips, it makes so much noise. So I'm just kind of looking for stuff and listening for more listening. And not to jump ahead, but how loud those drums are in the vocal track, I'd be thinking I can't probably compress the snot out of it like I usually would. So maybe make a little bit more space for the vocals instead of just making them louder than everything.
World is sick, flower.
Also, if we're going to tune anything, we got to be careful because we don't want to grab stuff in behind and make it sound wonky. So, like that sharp.
Just the way that you should be, yet you're beautiful naturally. Beautiful naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, back with tuning. There's a little flam thing there. Like
oh, beautiful maiden, Lord, be our patron, wasting all the money on that body that she keeps hating, and her ass and thighs. No, they don't need advice. No, they don't need
like that's
advice.
Flat. You might be able to bring that word up if you need to.
Rack, keep saying that her rack's the wrong size. Yeah.
I totally get some people are like, just leave it all in. It's natural. It's live. But if you can just... It's funny because the context of the song and the content of the song is kind of saying you don't need to do that. But if you can make it a little better, make it a little better. So a lot of that kick drum, that can be filtered out. It's the high pass filter would be fine with that.
World is sick when flowers growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. And you're just the way that you should be. Yet you're beautiful naturally. Beautiful naturally.
So we're getting into the solos here. So this might be one of those things where we can kind of fade out here and cut all this out. You can hear this acoustically, the electric in behind. I don't know who that was. Someone's either liking something or not liking something. A little sharp, might be able to fix that one.
Beautiful naturally. Girl, you're beautiful naturally.
There's just a little bit of like background stuff there. People breathing constantly. Yeah, overall I thought that was really good. So you can probably just tighten that up a little bit at the end there. Yeah, no, there wasn't much in there. We just had that one little tick there that we could clean up. That might not actually make it through the whole mix because of how the tracks are going to kind of add together and whatnot. But if you can hear that, you don't want to be getting it back from mastering and being like, oh, I really should have fixed that one word there, because now it's jumping out at me. So we can just go ahead and fix that earlier. So we listened to our tracks. Overall, I think it's sounding pretty well. We still have our background vocals here. There's lots of space. Lots of space on our background vocals. If you got multiple tracks that you want to expand or collapse, I guess, we can select the one track and hold shift to select the other track, or we can select the one track and then hold command. And command will allow us to pick individual tracks here. So let's just grab both of these. And if we hold shift and option and then go between them, get a little divider there, we can make both of those a little bit larger so we can see them. Let's just hold shift and let's listen to them at the same time. Shift and option, and we'll solo those. We'll just hit play. So this is live mics while we're actually tracking here.
Coffee and a cigarette.
So there's a male vocal, female vocal.
Around your neck, doll it up for disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics.
Bailed on that note. That's okay though.
On your waist and hips. Coffee and cigarettes. Calorie news.
I just want to listen to that one more time because it's kind of funny to me.
Doll it up for disrespect, disrespect, disrespect.
It's up there. If you're doing something live too, it's funny. It's like, treat it like radio. If you're not sure you want it to go on the radio, just pull back a little bit because everyone's doing stuff. So, because there's the other vocal.
Disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics.
Oh yeah, pop filters. All these plosives here.
Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing up.
Yeah, things like that. Because I do believe, I'm going to say that a lot because I think it's fun to say it. I do believe that this song record, you can find it on YouTube, but there's a video that goes with it. And pop screens, pop filters, they don't always look the best. So sometimes people don't use them because we eat with our eyes. And if it looks good, it's going to sound good. But definitely you're hearing the plosives there. So there's a couple different ways we can take care of that. But you're kind of hearing how much, excuse me, you're hearing how much it's just bleed, like needless bleed.
Yeah, just the way that.
So we can probably clean a lot of this up.
Coffee.
So we can just highlight that, select that, clean that up.
Coffee and a cigarette. Calorie news around your neck.
Maybe turn this up just a touch.
For disrespect, disrespect, disrespect.
It gets a bit loud over there, but our compressor will grab that. It's fine.
And posting pics. Flower.
I think that's all out there. Let's clean this up a little bit.
Good to me. You're just the way that. Naturally.
I don't know if we need to do this, but
Naturally.
we're just going to do this for now.
Naturally.
Also, if anyone's curious.
Naturally. Coffee and a cigarette. Calorie. Flower.
You can clean all that up.
Good to me.
Also, by having this playlisted, should we accidentally chop something here that we shouldn't, we can always just go back to the playlist underneath it and pull it back out. Just a little bit of breath in there. That's fine. We can get rid of that.
Naturally.
So I think there's that. Cymbals. Yelling.
Fly.
And then we're back in over here. So all this, we can chop that out.
Good to me.
Oh, also, I'm using a trackball style mouse, so I've got more buttons. If you're wondering how I'm able to flip around really quick. I'm hoping someday I'm traveling and find like a bargain bin of the trackball that I use that's been discontinued. If they had 50, I would buy all 50. I'd just say, take my money. Mine's definitely got some use. I think it's probably going to be able to get its learner's permit for driving soon. Okay, so we did a little bit of cleaning up there. Normally, there's a lot more cleaning up I find on songs. As far as like some of the sections where, let me turn our groups back on here. Normally, with some of the sections where there's spots where like nothing's kind of happening. Like let's look at our guitar here. But I'm not hearing a lot of garbage in between. I think it's already been, well, it's kind of cleaned up. If there was like hiss or amp buzz or people doing stuff, you could go through and clean that up. But there's not enough kind of going on that I would probably clean up around it. I know I mentioned it before, those toms are now, I think, are correctly labeled toms. I would go through and manually gate those, so... Got our floor tom here. We can just go in here and just tidy that up. And probably go to there. Actually, I'm going to bring that a little bit further. I know someone at home is just like, listen to the song first. And it's like, well, no, I like listen to your mix. And it's like, well, no, I'm just a few things I think we can tidy up. This is where tab to translate can come in handy too, because you can just get to the beginning of the actual sound there. I'm just going to fade that in. You can just go to there. That sounds pretty good. Because this too, if we want to get our toms up a little bit louder, we can do that now, because we're not going to bring up all the other stuff that's underneath it. Also, most rack toms, floor toms, they love to just resonate, especially with more like louder rock style songs. So you can see how much stuff we're cutting out by just doing that. So if we want to bring the attack from those toms up, we can. If you want to change the tails on any of these as well, we can just grab our trimmer tool, and we can always just drag that out, we can shorten them, lengthen them, whatever you want to do there. We're not even an hour and a half in yet. We haven't done any mixing. Just gonna tidy these up. But I told everyone at the beginning, part of this is seeing some of the, again, uppercase M, lowercase f, uppercase I, X, ing. And stuff like this, I'd be probably watching. And I just got through a lot of Walking Dead. I had to catch up. My lovely wife was like way ahead of me on it. Or a Leafs game. We're back. The Leafs are back tonight. Also Olympics. have that on because you can get all the replays online. So what I'm saying is some of this stuff you don't need to listen to. You can kind of just eyeball it once you get comfortable with it. Okay, things like that where the drummer wanted to do something, a little bit of flair. It's times like this where, like, if you're not hearing it, you can easily automate it by just using, well, not automate, but you can just use clip gain to make it a bit louder, or kind of just fix it, because sometimes the little drag thing that was going on there is not really going to translate, but we can kind of take what they meant to do and fix it if we want to make it more of a part. But I don't think it's going to get that much spotlight, so that's okay though. Once again, all these tracks, you can get them. If you're on YouTube, down below, I have the link for Cambridge Music Technology. Fantastic website and resource for people looking for stuff to practice mixing on, or even listening to the tracking. If you hear one of the songs on there and you're like, these guitars sound awesome, or like these drums sound great, listen and look at the tracking, and it can probably help your tracking as well. Because sometimes the sounds that we hear isn't, again, some people might disagree. Sometimes the sounds that we hear, it's not the microphone, it's not the mic placement. Sometimes it's the EQ that's applied to it when you're tracking. Like some rack toms, especially rack toms, 4 toms for drums, I think often it's more to do with the EQ that's on it than the actual mic placement in the microphone. And I can hear someone right now just like flipping the table at home, saying, you know, like, it's the microphone makes a big difference. But the amount of crappy sounding drum kits, especially live, I've heard like engineers fix with a little bit of gating and a lot of EQ. I side with the EQ. The EQ can make your drums sound a lot better. And that is one of those things that can be a little bit of a gut punch for some drum kits, because they can sound great, but they'd still need the little bit of that EQ to actually get it to where we need it to go. So there's a little bit of that open hi-hat there. And again, we're doing this manual gating so that we don't have to fuss around with an actual gate should we change anything down the road. Also, if you want to drop samples into, I'm not hearing it so much in this song, I think because of the way that it's played. I don't know if we need to drop any kick or snare samples in. That being said, usually game for that. Just helps balance things out a little bit quicker. You can kind of see what I'm doing in there. Kind of in the dark on that one, but. In case you're wondering how long I'm going to go, I'm trying to do this Mondays at 7 and Thursdays at a time that I've already forgotten the afternoon. I think I said 12 or 2. But just kind of take a couple hours to kind of mess around with the track and just kind of see what's there. And, down the road, be able to answer some questions that people might have about ways we can approach dealing with some of the issues we might have with our tracking. Because that's often what we're doing. We're just trying to solve problems, trying to fix stuff when we're mixing and we're editing. As efficiently as we can as well. That's the other thing too. Because I know people, and we all get, we all suffer from it sometimes, where we take the scenic route trying to solve some of the issues that we might have with a mix or a project or something. But there's really efficient ways to kind of deal with this. And again, even though I spent a couple minutes doing that manual gating there, I would often the manual gain that's there. I would often just go and do that again. I'm usually watching TV or something as it's going. I just want to check one technical thing here. Make sure this is proper here. Again, maiden voyage tonight with how this is getting blasted out. So all right, that should be okay. I'm using restream.io. So this is going to Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, believe it or not, and YouTube all at the same time. YouTube's going to be the home base for this, but just want to make sure everything was going the way it's supposed to. Okay, so we got that kind of gated there, so that's looking pretty good. I think we can get rid of the stuff that's in behind here. It's just bothering me. So I'm just going to highlight it and delete it. All right, so got through that. Again, I love making new versions, new save as versions for things. I feel like where I'm at right now, just gonna do that so it makes more sense to me. There we go. I think where we're at right now is I'm gonna start putting some of these through our subgroups here. So I'm gonna highlight kick. I'm going to hold shift all the way down to this room chamber down here. I'm going to hold shift and option. I'm going to go to our outputs. I'm going to go to bus. I'm going to go to bus 1 and 2. We all have different ways of working. I don't rename my buses. I kind of just keep in mind where things are going. Our aux here has no input. So if we were to play this right now, yeah, just some basics with routing. If we play this, we don't hear anything. We know that the tracks have stuff going on, but we need to route this somewhere. So I'm going to hit mute on this just in case. Bus 1 and 2, I'm going to put the input on this to bus 1 and 2. Now we should see some level in there because now all these tracks are being bussed on bus 1 and 2. Input bus 1 and 2 on that one. Drums. Now, what we want to do as well, because this is kind of a subgroup or a stem, what we want to do is solo safe. So we want to hold command and then click on the S there for solo. That way, if we solo something over here, the actual track isn't soloed. So we can't hear it. So we need to hit hold command and then click it. And that'll put it solo safe. So anything that we're soloing on this subgroup will still come through over here. So be mindful of that. I'm going to turn our groups back on. I'm going to bring all our drums down. I'm going to turn our groups back off. Why am I doing that? Let's kind of get some levels for our drums here. And I'm going to fight a little bit with the levels. Fight a little bit with the levels that are happening. I got a mixer system. If anyone's curious how I'm actually routing this, I'm more than happy to do a kind of a signal flow. Don's asking, are you putting these on YouTube after? This is live streaming to YouTube as well. If you can find it, because we don't really have a channel, like the shorter, smarter channel URL yet. So it does exist somewhere right now on YouTube. Again, I told myself I'm just going live today to just get this going, and I'll deal with some of the logistics of it later. Okay, so we've got our subgroup for our drums here. I like to use this as well as a meter. So I really want to bring my kick drum up. Again, I'm not doing any EQing or anything right now. I just want to kind of get just a faders up mix of what's going on. I have meters in front of me, but I also like using the meters here as well. Where we're seeing the green's kind of our VU style, and where we're seeing the little orange there, that's kind of our peak reading. So let's bring that up. It's pretty good. I usually like to have my stuff between, say, minus 12 dBFS and maybe minus 10, minus 8. Should be good. If we need to bring it down, we can. But we're just going to get our drums balanced right now as I talk over them the whole time. Don says, okay, I've shared to Facebook. Will it be there in 3 days? Oh, everything's just going to stay up. Everything's just going to exist. I appreciate it, though. Thanks for the share. So that's just our kick. It's going to bring up our overheads. Again, I don't mix in headphones very often. Don, I got an idea. You just made me think of something. I'm just going to drop the YouTube link in the chat on Facebook. Because that's a smart workaround for that right now. One of the things one of the mix tricks I heard recently, they're just like, if your stuff's not loud enough, don't keep putting your faders up. Just turn up your actual headphone volume, and now everything's loud. And it works wonders. I'm going to go to where the actual snare drum comes in. Where was it? Oh, in the chorus. I'm just trying to get a little bit of a level with headroom. That as a reverb's pretty cool, actually. Oh, also options. Where is it? I know the hotkey, but Shift Command L. That will get us loop playback. It's under options, so loop playback. Also, this here that's the transport. So Command 1 on the number pad. That's how you bring that up. Also, you can kind of see it over here as well. Again, I'm comfortable enough with Pro Tools where I just mash around on the keyboard and it eventually will do my bidding, but it helps having stuff in loop or in loop playback when we're doing stuff like this. Again, not sure how loud it's going to be in your end. I'm trying to watch my meters using OBS over here. Okay, so we got a little bit of a drum mix going on here. One thing I do want to get going on here. I need some, there you are. Our little toms here. So let's assume that our rack tom is on our right side if we're looking at it, and our floor tom's on the left side if we're looking at it. Not gonna so there's not a whole lot going on with that tom there. We might look at that later. Excuse me. There might be some EQing we can do there later on that, but I'm just putting the faders up for now just to kind of get a mix or balance of what's going on. But also, because this is all grouped, if we need to make any changes for rebalancing, again, just using this as meters, and then also our master over here, so we can keep headroom. Okay, so without going too far into there, what do I want to use? I'm just going to use some stock Pro Tools DigiDesign stuff. What do I want to use? I know I got lots of fun stuff in there. I'm trying to think of some basic stuff that it works pretty well. Their snare setting in here actually works pretty good, believe it or not, I love saying that. I do believe this is the, we're just using, so there's an EQ section down here in this channel strip, but also there's a dynamic section as well. But I want to just use it for the dynamics of it. So I'm going to bring the threshold all the way up so we're not doing anything. So just get a little bit of energy off of it. Especially with that kick drum. You can hear the kick drum come up. So I'm going to throw an EQ on there as well. Stick with the Pro Tools stuff. Just a little bit of the muddiness. You can get rid of that. Maybe just add a little bit of air. I don't mix in headphones, so I'm kind of just having fun with it right now. So it's a good little slap that comes off the kick in microphone. The kick out microphone's got lots of wool on it. It's awesome. Excuse me. So we can mess around with that. So if we need more attack, then we can go to the kick in microphone. If we need more kind of wool and boofiness, we can grab that from the kick out microphone. So we just get a little bit more energy out of it, but just using the compressor from that snare preset on the channel strip. We can mess around with this a bit more. I know people like to, or some people like to mess around with the attack and the release and everything. 4:1 is usually a pretty good ratio to start with, but don't shy away from presets. Cycle through some of them. Sometimes you find a little bit of help there. Don says you don't use headphones when you're mixing. No, I use my speakers. Also, I think there's a lot to be said about. Actually, there's a good little piece here about mixing on headphones versus speakers. I think it's good to keep moving around unless you're critically listening. If you're trying to listen through masters or listen through technical things, and put your head in a vice and listen. But I think there's maybe something to be said about moving around, because even the reflections off of your desk, off of the ceiling, I don't have a cloud or anything above me. All I have is just 3 strips of Oralex on the back of my room to kind of deaden a little bit. And my room is a horrible size. It's 9 by 9. So like, I like to mix at all levels, but when I need it to be loud, it's like, I want to feel the air moving in the room. But also just, I didn't learn mixing on headphones. So it's weird to me, but I do like, not a plug for these, but I do like these, Beyerdynamic 990 Pros, or DT990 Pros. I do think they sound pretty good. And I find like even some of the lower end stuff, I'm like, okay, I kind of have an idea what's going on. Because the NS10s that I have, the speakers I have, there's not a lot of low end on them. That's why I need to listen on other systems to kind of figure that stuff out. But do whatever is comfortable for you. Because I totally get it. There's a lot of people that they're using headphones for mixing because that's their option. And I think that, like, more importantly, that's what you should do, is work with what you have. So, and rant. Okay, we tightened up the drums a little bit with just that little EQ and compressor. That's the secret too, is over here. We might need to thin that out just a little bit. Excuse me. But that chamber for the drums, there's a lot of cool stuff happening there. All right, so that we can work with that for a bit. Oh, while I'm here, one of the things I like to do is I usually take whatever I've got for my drum subgroup, and so what I did is I just selected this, I clicked it, I'm holding Option. This allows me to duplicate that plugin, and I just drag it onto my master. Now, what I do with that, so I'm going to bring the threshold back off here. I'm going to turn off our bass keys that I turned on for a second. I'm going to use this as kind of my mix bus compressor, and all I'm using this is partially as a meter. but also just kind of reel things out a little bit reel things in a little bit if I need to. So we're just kind of tapping that a little bit. I think that's probably pretty good. So it's just kind of there as a safety because we've got a lot of headroom here right now. Actually, in case I put gain on there, so I want to turn that down. So we can do some gain staging. Excuse me. Some gain staging here, so we can probably... Oh, it took my... Okay, it didn't copy it. There we go. I'll fix this. I was just checking too, because sometimes when with some of your groups, it'll like switch your settings on a whole bunch of things if you just want to switch it on one. So I'm going to bypass that. So if I hold Command and click on it, it'll turn blue. It's in bypass. Turn that down a little bit. I'm just keeping an eye on my peak meters over here. And it's going to check this again. That works for me right now. Again, we're just getting some levels together. Let's have a listen to our keys here, our keys base. Okay, so I'm not going to bother compressing that right now because I don't think it's going to go kind of out of control. So I might just put high pass and low pass filters on it. I'm really aggressive. Again, not what you should do, but what you could do. And what you could do is, I like to kind of use my high pass filters first and kind of just listen until I start to hear it do something. Usually it's on speakers, but headphones. It's around there I start to hear something in the lower rumblies of these headphones start to disappear. Also, one thing that I picked up that I thought made a whole lot of sense, your kick drum and your bass guitar or your bass instrument or your sub instrument, something needs to kind of take that first octave / second octave. And I feel like that kick drum is going to be able to take that. So maybe we can have that lower woofiness of the kick drum and then put our bass guitar or our bass keys over top up above that and not have the keys sit below that kick drum. Whatever sounds good to you, roll with it. But for me, I'm hearing that because I love that boofiness of the kick drum there. So I'm hearing a difference between those. There's just nothing. Other thing we can do too is we could just have a quick listen if there's anything oscillating in here. Might make it better, might make it worse. This is all non-destructive, so you can just play with it. I'm going to bring that down back to our drums here. It goes low. There's a couple other tricks. Maybe we'll get those out of the bag later if you need to mess with it. It's 10:45. I'll probably go from there 45 minutes. Usually I do sessions for 2 or 3 hours. I think that's a good amount of time, especially if you're not under a time restriction to do certain things. If you got to mix a song in a day, you just get it done. But we don't have to do that here. So again, I'm not planning on always finishing the mixes, but just kind of get stuff together. Okay, so I normally would go to my guitars next, but I do want to check out these keys over here. Same thing before I get too far ahead. So that output, usually I put my bass on 5 and 6. Don't ask me why, I just do. And then I'm going to put that in solo safe, so I'm going to hold Command, hit the S there. Our guitars here, they're already selected, so I'm going to go to bus. I just put guitars out 3 and 4. I usually work on my guitars before I work on my bass with most rock stuff, because once you get your guitars rocking and rock stuff, it's a lot easier. Just kind of tuck your bass up underneath it. Solo safe again, and our keys. Let's put those at 17, 18. Bring those in 17, 18. Keys, auxiliaries, and that kind of stuff, I kind of just put them wherever I got space. Then my vocals, while we're here, vocals are 7 and 8 for me. I don't use any outboard gear, so I don't need to worry about where it's actually going. It just needs to go out the proper bus to end up somewhere that makes sense. Okay, these keys here, which I love. I think they sound fantastic. We could probably bring the level up on those a little bit. Actually, let's do that. Now in the headphones too, a little bit of some of the mids could come out. We'll just see what's happening in here. It's subtle, also in headphones. There's something going on down there. Also, hot tip here, because you can't fully go all the way from 20 hertz all the way up to 20 kilohertz with the EQ 7 band, but with the 1 band, you can. If you're curious what's actually happening, so if we put a low pass on it, we can actually hear how low this actually goes. To me, that's just mud. It's just garbage down there. So one thing you can do as well, I know some people that just use a 1 band on, almost across the whole mix, so that they can use a high pass filter on pretty much everything. But usually I can get to where I need to with my 7 band over here. And again, we can go back and forth on whether you should EQ, then compress, or compress and EQ. I haven't lost too much sleep over that. I usually compress and then EQ. If something needs fixing, then I'll put an EQ in first. Don's saying, so the little bits you're picking up with the headphones, would you normally hear that if you're using speakers alone? I think I would. But also when I'm critically listening with the speakers, or using my speakers, it's different when I'm listening for. I'm listening for ticks and pops and listening for hiss and stuff. Also, the way that this is routed right now, I have a little bit of hiss from the microphone when when I mute it, I don't actually hear it. So there's definitely some things that you would hear more in headphones than on speakers. Also keep in mind, like just background noise where you are can drown out a lot of this stuff as well that you might be trying to fix. But let's try to make things best we can. So if someone is in an optimal listening environment, they can actually hear this stuff and not be distracted by some of the technical issues that might be going on. All right, so back to, Pro Tools. Back to this high pass here. Again, I'm really aggressive with my filters. Like I hear just some low end rubbly garbage that's there. Same with the low pass filter. I hear a little bit of hiss from it. I think it sounds pretty good overall though. Just add a little sparkle to it. Might mess around a little bit more with the I'm going to see if I've got something. I know I said I wasn't going to use anything not say anything too crazy, but I'm going to see if I've got one of my presets in here. I took forever to upgrade my rig and like get a newer version of Pro Tools. I was using Pro Tools. What was it? It might have been Pro Tools 8 for like ever. Up to Pro Tools. No, it was Pro Tools 12. But there's a few things I haven't brought over, but I made kind of a widener using the their delay 3 here. It might be subtle, but one of the things we could do with this. Pro Tools. Yeah. You just know when Pro Tools is going to start wheeling on you. So we're widening a little bit. There's a few wideners that we can use. But I do like that one. I use this one often on vocals, and it just seems to do a little bit something for me, so. I just wanted to bring this in, that keys in, that pad in, just to kind of fill up some real estate. So you can always turn it down. But when it comes to this guitar over here, I just want to know how much we actually have to work with. So I can turn my groups back off. And I'm going to solo the first guitar that we've got here. And just find the first section that it's kind of playing a bit louder. I think it goes over here. It looks pretty good. Now, to me, it's a little bit muddy. That's okay. That's what guitars sound like. Or they sound harsh. It's like one or the other. Just curious. So there's not a lot going on all the way down there. So we'll clean it up a little bit with this. This is my broken trackball. That's why I'm taking so long. There's a little something going on there. Not hearing anything else that's jumping at me too much. Subtle. It's like after I'm done EQing something, I can kind of hear something else that's jumping out. Also, don't worry with what it looks like. One of the things with EQing, it's like usually you want to try to take out the mud, add or reduce bass, or add or reduce treble. But sometimes it just looks a little bit interesting what's actually happening with the EQ curve. Also, some people definitely say you should be EQing when you're actually in the mix, but I like to just do a little bit of EQing before. Just copy that over. So I just cleaned up a little bit of the mud. Again, there's 2 microphones on this guitar amp. So one of the things that we could do as well, we'll just use them both at the same time here. But one of the things we could do is maybe move the keys off to one side a little bit, and then that would make a little bit of space for the guitars. I think I like that one better. So now I'm hearing that. There's something there whistling. All right. Just because we're here, I'm just gonna grab that compressor. I haven't actually messed around too much with this, but let's see what the actual electric guitar compressor is saying on this. Just want to bring the level up a little bit. Okay, so it's not too crazy what's happening here. I still want more top end on this. That's just me though. Because it's like, it's pretty mellow. See, now it's doing the thing because I didn't turn off the groups for it. Just want it for mix. I always forget to do that. Because I do use often. Actually, I'm going to leave that on. Alright, that should be turning it off, but it's not. I'll figure that out later. Don's saying, thanks for taking a moment to answer. You're welcome. And also, I missed the beginning. What is this part of the exercise called? You haven't actually started mixing it. Well, it is kind of doing mix prep. It's just kind of getting a handle on the different tracks that I have to work with, the sounds we have to work with, any technical issues I might want to deal with. Just getting a handle on all the ingredients that we're actually working with, because this song is really well played, really well recorded, and really well laid out. Like it's pretty clean. Even the little bit of like prep I've done so far, that is nowhere. You can spend 6 or 8 hours no problem prepping something, just cleaning stuff up. But I'm just kind of getting a handle on some of the sounds and also getting a balance, and then doing some gain staging so that when mix comes through, once it hits over here, we have some headroom to work with. But yeah, just kind of getting a handle on it, because maybe you come back tomorrow and you know what you want to do with it. Don says you picked a great song. By the way, it was one of the favorites in the class. Like, a lot of people really liked it, and it's available online already. Again, the Cambridge Music Technology website, like, they've got tons of great stuff on there. So to find this one on there, it's great. Also, when you're working with a great vocalist, that makes their mix a lot easier as well, because most of the time, if there's a vocal, you're listening to it. So that helps a lot too. Okay, so we got our drums, we got our bass keys, we've got our guitar in there. Pro Tools, there we go. You can just feel when Pro Tools is going to start wheeling on you. Okay, this snare over here, I'm going to add a little bit of top end to that. Like, I think overall it sounds pretty good. It's a little bit of tubbiness in there too. I know someone watching this either tonight or down the road is like freaking out. Like, just listen in the actual mix. There's that chord in there too. Because maybe we need to fix that. Sometimes we got to ask forgiveness. That is an educational experience, that chord. Okay, so I think a lot of this is feeling pretty good. Just as far as getting our levels together. Okay, I was wrong. That whirly keyboard keys bass thing's got to go under the kick drum. It's so low. So I'm going to pull back the filter on it a little bit. Okay, that's all sounding pretty good to me. It's my party right now, though. Lead vocals. Let's go have a listen to what's going on. I'm going to go over to the chorus because we get louder there. So we'll just have a little listen. You're beautiful, Don's saying, thank you. Very interesting. Welcome. I hope this is interesting and educational. Don's saying, only problem is that I'm using my iPad. I can't see a dang thing here. That's, you know what? You're still in the room. I don't know what it looks like on the iPad. Like, I'm still hoping I want people to see the chat. I want them to see, my true expression when we're working on some of this stuff, but also be able to see Pro Tools. Because again, like, I've been, after the last year and a half, basically, working online, excuse me, with the school, it's like, there's just too much going on gear-wise to not use it, and with the gaming channel, shameless plug, I had this kind of set up already, so I was thinking, I'm just going to use that for this, and it's going to be, so I don't know how it's going to translate on the phone and stuff like that. I'm curious to look at this after. Okay, we got 24 minutes. We're going to pretend I got to leave at 10:30. That'll be 2.5 hours of messing around with this stuff. Okay, we're on our lead vocal here. Oh, your they look good to me. I was saying use laptop to see Pro Tools clearly. I imagine. But I'm curious to see how garbled it looks on the phone after.
Growing free.
Okay. I know I got lots of EQ options, but I'm just going to keep with some of the stock Pro Tools stuff.
Growing free.
So I'm curious. So bringing that all the way down to 120 hertz. It's like I need to like warm up my voice before I actually start doing these. Bring it down to 120. You can hear just how much mud's down there. Again, because it's a live recording. That's pretty aggressive. I'm not going to leave that there. I'm just curious.
And you're just the way that
So something in there.
Yet you're beautiful naturally. Growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. And you're just the way that you should be. Yet you're beautiful now.
I'm just listening until I hear it do something.
Free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. And you're just the way that you should be. Yet you're beautiful now.
There's something in there.
Growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. And you're just the way that you should be. Yet you're beautiful naturally. Growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. And you're just the way that you should be. Yet you're beautiful naturally. Growing free.
There's a couple other things I would do to that after, but for what we're at right now, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to just keep riding with this channel strip we're using for the the drums and the guitars and everything like that.
Growing free.
I'm going to change that to 4:1 though.
Oh, your petals, they look good to me.
I would normally use 1176. Sorry, I normally use 1176 on this, but it sounds good. I'm not losing any sleep over it.
Growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. And you're just the
Gotta be careful how much of the drums is pulling up.
Yet you're beautiful naturally. Growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. And you're just the way that you should be. Yet you're beautiful naturally. Growing free. Oh, your petals, they
It's going to bring the gain up a little bit on this one.
And you're just the way that yet you're beautiful naturally. Growing free. Oh, your petals, they look
I can buy that.
good to me.
Again, we have to kind of find our balance because it's a live recording and the drums are in the vocals. It's not uncommon to compress the bejesus out of your vocals. Let's not kid ourselves on that one. So knowing that our drums are going to be in our vocals, we got to be mindful of that. So we'll just kind of just tap it a little bit. I like how I was on the mix window and I was trying to zoom in on the edit window. I don't know why that was happening. So I think that's sounding okay for our lead vocals. Pro Tools. Okay, there's some sibilance going on with. I'm just gonna copy these over.
Respect disrespect.
Oh, and the plosives too. There's a minefield of things going on here. Normally I compress an EQ, as you've seen. I'm just gonna go ahead.
Disrespect.
But I feel like there's some things we need to try to address here. So I usually leave the first slot open for any corrective things I need to do, but I'm not sure yet if I need to shuffle everything down to put a de-esser in behind that. But I'm going to try to grab some of the S's and plosives.
Disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on your waist and hips. Your body's right, the world is sick. World is sick. World is sick. Respect. Disrespect. Disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on.
We'll just see what we can get from this.
Hips. Your body's right, the world is sick. World is sick. World is sick. Respect. Disrespect. Disrespect. Popping pills and
because maybe we can just get a cool texture out of it and roll with that. Because the tone and the vibe's awesome.
World is sick. World is sick. Respect. Disrespect. Disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on your waist and hips. Your body's right. The world is sick. World is sick. World is sick. Respect. Disrespect. Disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on your waist and hips.
Might be something we can work with there.
Sick, world is sick. Respect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on.
It's gonna bring the game a bit more on this.
Right. The world is sick. World is sick. World is sick. Respect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on the waist and hips.
I'm just putting the background vocals on the left side. I think that's where they should be without actually looking at anything. Don's saying, or find some reading glasses, maybe. Let's go with resolution of the iPad. That's why we can't see what's going on. If you can blame the technology, then technology. Don says, oh, you definitely cleaned up those S's. A little bit goes a long way. Again, don't look at what it looks like. I know we just talked about looking at things, but just roll with it. But there's a cool texture of the actual voice. So yeah, we did some stuff.
Disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on the waist and hips. Body's right.
I can buy that. Let's listen to the third one here.
Disrespect, disrespect.
Bail.
Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on.
Same thing with the plosives on this. But that's okay. There's a little bit of mud in this one.
World is sick. World is sick. Respect. Disrespect. Disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on your waist and hips. Your body's right. The world is sick. World
I'm saying he needs more S.
Respect. Disrespect.
Oh, I did the thing I didn't want to do. Sometimes when I'm copying plugins over, I copy over something and then you got to go back in time.
Your body's right.
That's okay. It's not precious.
World is sick. World is sick. Respect. Disrespect. Disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on your waist and hips. Your body's right. The world is sick. World is sick. World is sick. Respect. Disrespect. Disrespect.
Popping pills and posting pics. Stressing on the waist and hips. Her body's right. The world is sick. World world is sick, world is sick.
I actually kind of like them panned out a little bit.
Disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the waist and hips. Her body's right, the world is sick, world is sick, world is sick. Respect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the
I'll leave
waist
that
and
EQ there in
hips.
case I need it.
Her body's right, the world is sick, world is sick, world is sick.
All right, so we got quite a bit going on right now. If I gotta shut this down at 10:30. It's gonna have a quick listen through here. Before I do that, actually, I'm gonna do two more things. So I like to use mono. It's one of those things probably not popular. I like to use mono auxes for my delays and my reverbs. And hopefully it makes sense in a second. So I usually use 2 delays and a reverb. And also just my convention, I usually use bus 9 for the short delay, bus 10 for the long delay, and then bus 11 for my reverb. And if I do any throws, any vocal throws, or any whiz-bang production, fancy pants stuff, I usually use bus 12 for that. And again, we just have our different ways of working. So what I'm going to do here, just while I'm listening through, in case I want to mess around with anything with our effects, I'll go ahead and do that. So we got kind of our idea of what the tempo is of 67, I do believe. I'm going to put a stereo delay on this mono bus. So if I want to do any weird panning stuff, I can still do that. And then same thing when it comes to the reverb here. What do I want to use? What have I been messing with? What's the one? I think it's the Illustrious Plates. I think I just like the actual interface for this one. I think it just looks nice. But I feel like I'm going to just use the deverb because we're here. I was talking about using stock Pro Tools plugins, so let's just go and use that. We looked at Illustrious Plates for a second. We've got that wicked room for the drums that's already there, the chamber that's there. But we'll just kind of throw this on here. One of my tricks that not tricks that I use, but I can put these all in solo safe. Again, just hold Command and click the S on all those. But one of the things that I do to kind of set my reverb, I'll just go to my snare track here. I'll solo that. Excuse me. And I'm going to get some of my snare here. So I think this is cross stick. That's on the kick drum. That's not on the snare drum at all. I can hear people shouting at home right now.
Don't let up disrespect.
I want that cross stick.
She paints up that face.
Because it's a lot easier to time off of that. So we'll solo that. What do we got here? I like the church played a little bit better. Or sorry, church better. I know what I'm listening for right now. Just give me a second. I think it's this loop's not helping me either. Blame the tech. I'm just curious.
Don't need advice, no. She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide.
Nope, distracting.
She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide. Her shape and size.
So I usually try to get the reverb tail off my snare drum. Sometimes it does what it needed to do. Sometimes not so much. I can just hold Option and drag that bus 11 over to my vocal. Let's put that on all those, just because we're there.
Her shape and size. Don't need advice, no. She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide. Her shape and size. Don't need advice, no. She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide. Her shape and size.
Okay, so I'm not minding that reverb. It's like, to me, it's insanely long, and it's probably insanely loud right now. Another reason why, too, like when you got to mix something in one day, you got to take a lot of breaks because you need to get fresh ears on it. But the idea where if I needed to send someone tomorrow, I could, like, if I need to send it to them by noon, it's like I can wake up in the morning and probably get 2 tweaky sessions in with it for, you know, half an hour or something. Okay, so we got that reverb going, which is just kind of bonkers how it's rolling. But let's get our slap delay. Yeah, I don't usually use too many effects on vocals. I'm gonna link these because it's a slap delay. Okay, so that's 124. 124 divided by 2 is 112. 112.5. I just want kind of a little vintagey slap back on that, so.
Her shape and size. Don't need advice, no. She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide. Her shape and size.
Just add a little bit of kind of room texture on it.
No. She paints up that face to make sure those
We've been doing pretty good. We're not smashing the bejesus out of our 2 mix here.
Don't need advice, no. She paints up that face.
And do the thing I shouldn't do, which is move the threshold. People at home are yelling right now. I know it.
Her shape and size. Don't need advice, no.
Okay, so we kind of got that happening now. Okay, this is another part. I think it's sounding pretty good right now. So this is the point where I'm going to save as and get rid of all that. This is my naming convention for tracks. So if we're mixing, reference the date. So there's no misunderstanding what's going on with if you have the month or the day, the 2 characters for the day, the 3 characters for the month, 2 characters for the year, and then version 1. So I can look at this because I might, when I'm mixing, I might have like, Don, to answer your question too, you're like, you're not actually mixing it. Now I feel like I'm mixing. Now I feel like, okay, we're feeling pretty good about this. I might be doing some more tweaky stuff later, but like, I think it sounds good right now. So I'm going to put a label on this. We're no longer prepping. We're now, we've been mixing. So we're going to listen from the top here. I'm going to go to our markers over here. Let's put them in. Took time to do that.
Oh, beautiful lady, baby, even from a mirror.
It's going to see what's bugging me as we're going by. Also, usually I have way more crap on my mix bus over here, my main mix bus.
Don't need advice, no. She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide. Coffee in the cigarettes, calorie news around the neck.
Those overheads sound pretty good, but I'm curious to just take a little bit of mids out. And I know it's like, I'm just going to listen to the song and then like instantly start carving at the overheads. I'm sorry.
Yet you're beautiful naturally. Beautiful naturally. Yeah. Oh, beautiful maiden, glory help patron, wasting all the money on that body that she keeps.
Throw some sauce on those keys there.
Her ass and thighs, no, they don't need advice, but the magazine.
All right, it's kind of a dangerous move here, but I'm curious to throw some delay on this guitar here, but I don't want to use that one. I'll use that one. So I'm going to use our longer delay here. I'm not going to link them. I'm going to try something a little bit wacky here. Again, I can ruin the mix by doing this, but...
Calorie news around the neck, don't it up. Disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. The body right, the world is sick, world is sick, world is sick. From flower to flower, growing.
Now, because we have all our groups, if we want to do any, oh, it's 10:30. We're good. If I want to do any like balancing, it's really easy.
Just the way that you move through yet you're beautiful naturally.
Just a couple other things I would do while we're here.
Naturally. If I said flower, flower, just growing free. Oh,
This is just on our mix bus.
good to me. You're just the way that you would.
Whoa, there's a lot going on down
Yeah,
there.
you're beautiful naturally.
Sort that out later.
If I said flower, flower, just growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me. You're just the way that you should be. Yeah, you're beautiful naturally.
So there's a couple things that are jumping out now. But let's do one more listen through. All I'll be able to do is move faders, and then we'll go from there. Again, I thought it sounded good before, so make a new save there just in case. So listening through. So I put that crazy, awesome reverb on there.
Baby, even from a mirror, but that her dukes are not the daisies, and her shape and size.
Also, in case anyone's wondering, I would normally, near the end of a mix, start mixing through a limiter. So we have an idea what it's gonna sound like once we get there.
Coffee and cigarettes, calorie news around the neck. Don't it up, disrespect, disrespect.
I wonder where those symbols are coming from.
Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the waist and hips. Body's right, the world is sick, world is sick, world is sick. From flower to flower, growing free.
Just want to get a little bit more power to the kick, or the kick. All I had to do is put the kick drum mic in up a little bit.
Just the way that you should be, yet you're beautiful naturally. Beautiful naturally, yeah. Oh, beautiful maiden, glory without patron, wasting all the money on that body that she keeps hating, and her ass and thighs. No, they don't need advice, but the magazine rack keeps saying
that bass is awesome, but it's tough to work with for me.
Yeah. Coffee and cigarettes, calorie news around the neck. Don't it up for disrespect, disrespect, disrespect.
Bring the widener over.
Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the waist and hips. Nobody's right, the world is sick, world is sick, world is sick. Well, flower, flower, growing free. Oh, your petals, they look good to me.
Don says, so I'm curious, once you finish the mix, do you listen to the before and after? As far as the reference goes, yes. And like, there's that weird voice thing that's in there. I hear it now. As far as that, to me, it's like my mix needs to sound better to me than their reference. If it doesn't, then I'm afraid to send it. But it means there's something wrong on my end. But I think those crashes are coming through this.
They look good to me. You're just the way that you should be. Yeah, you're beautiful.
So that might be a thing for next time, is try to figure out where those symbols are kind of coming through, because it might be through the vocal. But we can figure that out later.
Naturally, girl, you're beautiful naturally.
I think that's sounding pretty good. Natural fade out. I would end it there. So I'm just going to put another marker in there. And make sure I'm on the right track. And I do my own fade outs here.
You're beautiful naturally. You're beautiful naturally.
If I had one fader to automate, I would. This is what it would be for, just for fading out songs. All right, so that's pretty good. So again, my own work flow. I just have these two spots here, so we can just quickly grab the start and the end of that. Also, what you can do as well, so you can use the markers. You can go to selection. Sorry, not selection. Yeah, selection. And you can just call this, let's call this export full. So that way, if we want to go back to that, before we export the song, we can just select that, and then I'll just grab the beginning and the end. Don says, end it with a 10-minute drum solo. Ha, just kidding. Oh yeah, of course. Everyone loves the drum solo. I'm sure it was brought up when they were doing pre-production on the track, but it didn't make it to the end here. One of the things that I also do, just out of habit, Shift Command U, Shift Command B. If there's any clips, any unused audio regions and stuff, you can just remove that from your session. You don't need it there. So go ahead and do that. I think it's pretty good. I think we made quite a bit of ground in 2.5-ish hours. For a first go at it, I thought it worked out pretty good. So other thing that I would do, check in something quickly. The last thing that I would do, well, sometimes I would bounce this down so I have it. Don says, I'm just kidding. It sounds amazing. Thank you, Don. Well, again, this is all the players. Like this, you could, as they say here in Canada, you could mix this with a hockey stick. So the last thing that I would do, because people sometimes wonder about this, saving a backup for it. Save copy in. This makes it create an entire copy of the session that we're using. Again, with digital stuff, if it doesn't exist in at least 2 or 3 places, assume that it does not exist. So our session settings here, in case you're wondering, even if the session comes in at 96 or 88.2 sample rate, I still just bump it down to 44.1. No complaints yet so far, and yeah, 624-bit for a bit depth. Item is to copy your audio files. If you don't select this, because we are using Pro Tools, if you don't select this, all you get is the Pro Tools file, the .ptx file. It's like giving someone blueprints with no building supplies. So make sure that the audio files are there and anything else that you may need for this. You hit OK. Now I'm going to go to this drive over here. I'm just going to make a new folder here. Call this Let's Mix Live. Just back up. Let's open that up. And then my naming convention for backing things up. I don't have the copy of there. I just put capital BU for my backup. And then I can hit save. And it'll copy over everything that's in the session. So it's an exact copy of it. And I highly recommend have at least one backup of your work, because it sucks to lose any of your work. And also, especially with mixed stuff, I don't even know if I've checked this in a while, because sometimes things get messed around. But operation, saving most recent backups, I usually have that on like 30, and then I have that every backup every 1 minute. Especially when you're mixing, you can lose a lot of stuff in 1 minute of mixing, because sometimes you're not always hitting Apple S to save. Sometimes you're just working away, and then Pro Tools out on you, and then you're like, oh no, and then you get your backup, and like even 2 or 3 minutes, a lot of stuff can happen in that time. So I do recommend having that set up quicker than that. Sometimes you need to trash your preferences in Pro Tools, and those things go away and you just need to reset them, but good to have that stuff sitting where it needs to. Well, I think that is it for today. I'm going to see if we back this up. We're good. I'm going to see if this is working the way that I had planned it to work. I do miss this song. Shameless plug. I do miss Dear Bands Live, the podcast. We're talking about the paths and stories of career-minded musicians and music industry professionals. We'll get back to that later, but for now, I am hopefully be able to do this. We can just kind of look at look at some mix sessions live, and answer any questions people might have, and any bands that are working on their own stuff, because like the last 2 years, it's been bonkers how many people like have been recording their own stuff, and how quickly their abilities to record themselves and self-produce and stuff has come along. Hear lots of great stuff. So if this helps you, want to help support the channel, just like it on YouTube and subscribe. Again, I'm planning on being here Mondays at 7 It's a little bit late today because I had to fix a few things. Mondays at 7 and Thursdays, I think at noon. I need to check that, either noon or 2. I need to keep that in mind. But we are here again on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Don says, thanks so much, Mike. So glad you're doing this. Have a great night. Have a great night, Don. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And thanks to everybody else in the future and who might be seeing this later on. That's my time for tonight. Go Leafs, go. Hopefully they won. Talk to you later.